about the transaction. And by the way, not necessarily because it's controversial, but because it's a large media transaction, and the media likes covering the media, and there are serious public policy issues that are potentially at stake in the transfer of a national broadcast network and a series of local, actually 2 national broadcast networks, the NBC network and the Telemundo network, and 26 owned and operated local broadcast stations. And so I think Congress is properly holding hearings to be able to learn about the transaction, to be able to air whatever issues people have. At the end of the day, this is what I would call an eminently approvable transaction, which is it does not raise, under traditional antitrust analysis, very significant antitrust or competition policy objections. And from the FCC perspective, this deal is pro-consumer, it's pro-competitive, and it's strongly in the public interest.
Could you explain to us why this is not monopolistic? Because for the lay person, the person who just looks at it, sounds like it is.
Well, and it's sort of interesting. So first of all, Comcast is primarily in the business of distribution of content. We own wires, and by the way, our market share of that is less than 25%. So more than 3/4 of the people who have multi-channel video service in the country buy that service from someone other than Comcast. So 25% of the distribution side is hardly monopolistic. We're acquiring not one additional customer, not one additional distribution customer. So at the beginning of the deal, we're going to have less than 25% of the distribution market. At the end of the deal, we're going to have less than 25% of the distribution market. There's no increase in our concentration at all. On the content side, NBC is exclusively a content company. We have a tiny bit of content. So the combined content of the 2 companies at the end of the deal will be 10 or 11% of the cable content in the country. So that's not monopolistic. 90% of the content in the country is going to be owned and operated by people other than Comcast.
Okay, but would you be able, it seems to me you will be able to tie the distribution to the content.
How can you do that?
Well, you require.
The content's available to all of our competitors, has to be under the law. The law requires that if you're vertically integrated, that is, if you're a distributor who owns content, you have to make it available to your competitors, and you have to do it on non-discriminatory terms. So there's really not an issue in this transaction about potentially taking this content and using it to the advantage of the distribution system.
Okay.
Can't be done under the law.
Okay, I won't quarrel with you. You're the lawyer here, but it would seem, well, what happens when a cable purveyor has access to a broadcast, to broadcast television this way? Isn't this going to change the future of broadcast television? I
don't think so. First of all, remember, broadcast television is available free over the air, so you don't need to be a multi-channel video subscriber to get the broadcast television. All you need is a television set with an antenna, and you can get the broadcast content. So that's number one. Number two, if there's a change in the history of broadcast television, it is because broadcast television is in trouble right now. It's got a troubled business model. I don't know if you saw, but there have been a series of layoffs of personnel in the broadcast network. Earlier this year, ABC News laid off another 300 or 400 people after laying off several hundred people the year before. We happen to be raising our hands and saying, we think the solution to the broadcast television model is not to keep cutting, but it's to invest in broadcast television, to improve the content, to increase the number of people who are watching broadcast television by improving what it is that you're putting on the air, and that will help to turn around the model and to turn around broadcast television. So, but this is not a transformative media acquisition. I mean, it's a very nice collection of media assets, but it's not a big collection. As I said, NBC alone is only about 9% of the content that's available in America. So it's a nice collection of media assets that's being transferred from one Fortune 100 company, General Electric, to another Fortune 100 company, Comcast. In fact, we're smaller than GE.
Okay, well, let me get it in another way. What about the fact that this is an unusual combination in this? Do you think that it reflects something in the future, some change in the whole media landscape? It may be very well what you say, that it's a small portion of the whole, but what about what it means for the future of media?
I don't think so. I mean, by the way, it's not that unusual. There used to be a lot more vertical integration of distributors owning content. In 1992, when the Telecommunications Act was passed, 57% of the cable channels that existed were owned by a cable distributor. Today, that number is in single digits. So the trend, if there's been a trend, has been for the owners of distribution, if you will, to get out of the content business. Now, we happen to have a different view. We happen to think that content and distribution go very well together. We think we think content helps distribution and distribution helps content. But I don't think this is like the first transaction of some avalanche now of transactions where all the other distributors are going to want to go buy a network or any other content. Now, if we do well with this, and I think we will, then that may cause some people to change their mind. But again, as long as I don't want to speculate about a hypothetical future transaction, but in the structure of our transaction, it's hard to see what the competitive harms are or what the concerns are from the perspective of the consumer.
Okay. Well, in terms of some of these changes that you want to see happen in content, say, what would they be? Can you be specific?
Sure. Well, the first piece of this is just investing in content, and we've made a number of commitments of the things that we want to do. So, for example, we think one of the dying arts in content today is local news and local public affairs programming. Sort of what we're doing and sitting here doing today. There's not enough of it, and people like to watch it. They like to see people talking about issues that are of concern to them locally as opposed to just watching the national news. So we've committed in the first year to add 1,000 additional hours of local news and local public affairs programming to the 10 NBC owned and operated stations that are owned by NBC and will be owned by us. So there's a tangible commitment and a tangible change. On a more generic basis, and let me give you the overview, and then I'll try and give you an example. We think the American consumer today in the video space is interested in what I call an anytime, anywhere vision of watching video. There's no more appointment television anymore. You don't eat dinner at 6 o'clock as a family and sit down on the couch in the living room to watch Wonderful World of Disney at 7 o'clock. People want to watch what they want to watch, when they want to watch it, where they want to watch it, and on the device they want to watch it on. And if you think about that, that's the marriage of great content, and then all the rest of that requires the technology and innovation of the distribution platform. And we think that by combining content and distribution, we can accelerate that anytime, anywhere vision by bringing more video to more people on different devices, in different rooms in their house, through different time-shifting models, and through different methods of viewing, not just as a linear channel by way of example, but on demand and maybe on demand online, so that you'll be able to see your content in multiple different ways than you can do that today. Okay,
you make it sound very compelling.
There's nothing more exciting right now about the video entertainment space. The world is changing so quickly. I watch the way my kids watch television compared to the way I watched television when I was growing up. I watch the way I watch television compared to the way I watched television 10 years ago. And I think it's an incredibly exciting world, and a little bit, I don't think the consequences are the same, but it reminds me when Ed Rendell became mayor and the opportunities that he had to be able to lead a change in the way in which local government operated and to turn around the city. I think Brian Roberts and Comcast and our team has an opportunity to change the way for the better that people watch television, people use the internet, and that people access the content that they love.
Okay. Well, as you've mentioned, you have 2 sons?
I have 2 sons.
College age?
But my older son is going to be graduating this spring from Rider University.
Okay.
And my younger son is a sophomore at Emory down in Atlanta.
Okay. So what advice do you give them in terms of the career landscape that lies ahead. And I guess I would broaden that and say, what advice would you give young people going into the media area coming out of college?
So the first piece of advice I give in a serious vein, which is a generic piece of advice, is that find something you're passionate about. Find something you love doing. That even if you're not a workaholic, even if you're not working David Cohen hours, you are going to spend more of your waking hours at your workplace than you will with anything else that you do. And so you should love what you do. You should love the people you work with, because if not, you're not going to be very happy. And I think that's the best advice that I can give young people, and that I do give young people. In terms of the media landscape, I think my best advice is be flexible, because that media landscape is changing a mile a minute. And you may think you love one aspect of media, and that aspect of media may not be around 10 years from now. So you want to get a good generic background. You want to have transferable skills among different elements of the media. And I believe media will always be a great job. There's always going to be room in media. There's always going to be jobs in media, but don't get yourself locked into any particular medium within the media landscape.
Well, thank you very much, David L. Cohen. I think this is excellent advice, and I think our viewers will appreciate it.
Well, great. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
And thank you for joining us today at the Drexel interview.